There is a quiet mistake almost everyone makes when they start manifesting, and it hides in plain sight. It feels like effort. It looks like discipline. It sounds like repeating affirmations, visualizing every night, staying positive no matter what. It even feels productive. But beneath all of that, something is off, because the harder you try, the less you seem to receive. And that is not an accident. You're not failing at manifestation, you're trying too hard. And that is exactly why nothing is working. This goes against everything you've been told. Push more, focus more, want it more. Yet the truth is uncomfortable. The more you chase it, the further it moves away. Not because manifestation is fake, but because effort, in this case, can quietly turn into resistance. There is a deeper layer most people never see. Every time you force belief, every time you repeat something you don't truly feel, every time you try to convince yourself that something is already yours while your mind is full of doubt, you create tension. And that tension sends a very clear signal. It says this is missing. It says this is not here yet. It says keep chasing. And without realizing it, you trap yourself in a loop where you are always reaching but never arriving. This is where frustration starts to grow. You begin to question everything. Maybe the method is wrong. Maybe the timing is off. Maybe it works for others but not for you. That silent doubt slowly replaces hope. And the more you try to fix it, the worse it feels. There are people who spend months, even years, doing everything right on the surface. They follow every step, they watch every video, they say every affirmation. Yet nothing changes. And then there are others who seem to receive things effortlessly. No obsession, no pressure, no constant effort, just a calm sense of knowing. That difference is not luck, it is not talent, it is something far more subtle. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Because manifestation was never about forcing reality to change. It was never about controlling every thought or eliminating every doubt. It was never about trying harder than everyone else. It was about something much quieter, something that most people overlook because it does not feel like action. It feels like letting go. This is where things start to shift, not on the outside first, but internally. Because when you stop pushing so hard, you create space. And in that space, something new begins to happen. Your mind becomes clearer. Your emotions settle, the pressure starts to fade, and suddenly what once felt impossible begins to feel normal. Not exciting, not overwhelming, just natural. And that is the state where real change begins. But getting there requires understanding a truth that is rarely talked about. Trying harder does not bring it closer. In many cases, it pushes it further away. In this video, everything will be broken down step by step in a way that finally makes sense. You will see why effort can turn into resistance without you noticing. You will understand the hidden reason why affirmations sometimes backfire. You will discover why detachment is not giving up, but actually the moment things start aligning. And most importantly, you will learn how to shift from chasing what you want to becoming someone who naturally attracts it. This is not about adding more techniques. It is about removing what is quietly blocking you. There is also something unexpected that will be revealed later in this video. A simple shift that changes how you see manifestation completely. It is often ignored because it feels too easy, but that is exactly why it works. Most people overlook it because they are too focused on doing more. That one shift can break the cycle of trying and failing. It can move you from frustration to clarity. And once it clicks, you will start noticing changes not just in manifestation, but in how you approach everything in life. So stay with this till the end, because the final insight is where everything comes together. It is where confusion turns into understanding. It is where effort turns into ease. And it might be the one thing that finally explains why nothing has been working until now. Welcome to the channel. If you are ready to see manifestation from a completely different perspective, make sure you subscribe and stay connected. Because sometimes the smallest shift in understanding can change everything. There comes a point where effort starts to feel heavy instead of hopeful. And that is where most people quietly begin to struggle. At first, everything feels exciting. You discover manifestation, and it feels like you finally found the missing piece. You start repeating affirmations every day. You stand in front of the mirror and say the words with focus. You try to believe them even when it feels unfamiliar. You sit down and visualize your dream life in detail. You picture the money, the success, the relationship, the version of yourself that already has it. You try to feel it as real as possible. You tell yourself to stay positive no matter what happens. You correct negative thoughts the moment they appear. You remind yourself to trust the process. On the outside, it looks like progress. It feels like you are doing everything right. But slowly, something begins to shift. Not in your favor, but inside your mind. Days pass, then weeks, then months. and the reality around you stays the same. Nothing really moves. The results you expected do not show up. The excitement you once had starts to fade. You begin to notice the gap between what you are doing and what you are getting, and that gap becomes impossible to ignore. It starts as a small thought, almost easy to dismiss. Maybe it just needs more time. Maybe you need to try harder. So you push more. You repeat affirmations more often. You visualize longer. You try to feel it deeper. But instead of bringing relief, it starts to feel forced. It starts to feel like effort. And effort slowly turns into pressure. That is when frustration begins to build. You wake up and do the same routine, but it no longer feels natural. It feels like something you have to do. You tell yourself to stay positive, but it feels like you are fighting your own thoughts. You try to believe, but doubt quietly sits in the background. And no matter how much you try to ignore it, it does not go away. It gets louder. It asks questions you cannot easily answer. Am I doing this wrong? Why is nothing changing? Why does it seem so easy for others? These questions do not come all at once. They build slowly, layer by layer, until they start affecting how you feel about everything. You see other people talk about their results. You hear stories of fast success. You watch others explain how their life changed after they started manifesting. And instead of feeling inspired, something inside you feels uncomfortable. You compare your experience with theirs. You wonder what they are doing differently. You start looking for new techniques, new methods, new tricks that might fix what is not working. You go deeper into the process, thinking the answer must be more effort, more control, more discipline. But the more you search, the more confused it becomes. Because every new method adds another layer of pressure, another thing to do, another thing to get right. At some point, it stops feeling like growth and starts feeling like a cycle. You try, you hope, you wait, and then you feel disappointed. Then you try again, but with a little less belief, a little more doubt, and that doubt begins to change how everything feels. Even when you say affirmations, there is a quiet voice in the background that questions them. Even when you visualize, it feels like you are imagining something far away instead of something real. Even when you try to stay positive, it feels like you are covering something up instead of truly feeling it. This is the part most people do not talk about. Because on the surface, it looks like you are doing everything right. But internally, something is not aligned. And that misalignment is the real problem. Manifestation is not about effort. It is about alignment. But effort is what most people focus on. Because effort feels like control. It feels like you are doing something to move forward. But in this case, effort can quietly work against you. Trying hard does not always mean progress. Sometimes it means resistance. When you push too much, you create tension. And that tension is not neutral. It carries a message. It carries the feeling of not having what you want. Because if you truly felt like it was already yours, you would not feel the need to force it so much. You would not feel the need to convince yourself again and again. You would not feel the pressure to keep doing more. That constant need to try harder is not coming from certainty. It is coming from lack. And this is where everything begins to make sense in a different way. Because the moment you feel like you need something badly, you are also feeling that it is missing. That feeling becomes the dominant signal. It becomes stronger than the words you say or the images you create in your mind. You can repeat positive statements all day, but if underneath them there is a sense of absence, that is what stays consistent. That is what shapes your experience. This is why forcing does not work the way people expect. Forcing is not neutral action. It is action driven by the belief that something is not here yet. And that belief does not stay hidden. It shows up in your energy, in your emotions, in your thoughts. It shows up in the way you react when nothing changes. It shows up in the way you feel when you compare your reality with your desires. It becomes a constant reminder of the gap. And the more you try to close that gap through effort, the more aware you become of it. It is a quiet loop that feeds itself. You try harder because you do not see results. But trying harder reminds you that results are missing. And that feeling of missing results pushes you to try even more. Without realizing it, you are strengthening the very thing you want to change. This is the lack trap. It is not obvious at first. It does not feel negative in the beginning. It feels like motivation. It feels like dedication. But over time, it reveals its true effect. Every time you repeat something with desperation, it carries a different energy than when it comes from calm certainty. Every time you visualize while feeling the distance between where you are and where you want to be, that distance becomes more real in your mind. Every time you push yourself to believe something that does not feel true yet, your mind resists it. You are not attracting it. You are reminding yourself it is missing. That is the part that changes everything. because it shifts the focus from what you are doing to how you are feeling while doing it. It shows that the problem is not the technique itself, but the state behind it. The same action can create completely different results depending on the feeling attached to it. When affirmations come from calm belief, they feel natural. They feel like a reflection of something that already exists. But when they come from desperation, they feel like an attempt to fix something that is not working. That difference may seem small, but it changes everything, because your mind responds more to what feels real than to what is being said. This is why people can follow the same steps and get different outcomes. One person feels aligned, relaxed, certain. The other feels tense, doubtful, pressured. On the surface, they are doing the same thing, but internally, they are in completely different states. And that internal state is what shapes the result. The moment you start noticing this, things begin to shift. Not instantly, but clearly. You start seeing that the problem was never a lack of effort. It was too much of it in the wrong direction. It was effort driven by absence instead of alignment. And that realization opens the door to a different approach. One that does not rely on pushing harder, but on understanding what is actually happening beneath the surface. There is a shift that feels almost too simple at first. And because it feels simple, most people ignore it or misunderstand it. It does not look powerful. It does not feel like effort. It does not give you that sense of control that trying harder gives you, but it changes everything quietly. What you want comes easier when you stop needing it. That line can feel confusing in the beginning because it sounds like you are being asked to stop caring. It sounds like you are being told to give up. But that is not what it means at all. Detachment is not about losing interest. It is not about pretending you do not want something. It is not about pushing your desire away or convincing yourself that it does not matter. Detachment is something much calmer. It is a state where you still want something, but you are not depending on it to feel okay. You are not tying your happiness to its arrival. You are not measuring your worth based on whether it shows up or not. At first, this can feel unfamiliar because most people are used to the opposite. They are used to wanting something so strongly that it becomes the center of their focus. They think about it all the time. They check for signs. They look for progress. They analyze every small detail. They keep asking when it will happen and how it will happen. That constant focus feels like dedication, but it also creates tension. It keeps the desire in a state of urgency. It keeps the mind in a state of waiting. And waiting is not a calm state. Waiting carries pressure. Waiting carries the feeling that something is not here yet. Detachment changes that state completely. It removes the pressure without removing the desire. It allows you to want something without feeling incomplete without it. It creates a sense of stability. You are no longer reacting to every delay. You are no longer questioning everything when nothing changes for a while. You are not trying to control the outcome every moment. Instead, there is a quiet sense of trust. Not forced trust, but natural trust. The kind that does not need constant reminders. This is where the energy shift begins. It moves from desperate to calm, from chasing to allowing, from uncertainty to quiet certainty. That shift may not look dramatic from the outside, but internally it changes how everything feels. When you are calm, your thoughts are clearer. When you are not desperate, your actions feel natural instead of forced. When you are not chasing, you stop creating distance between you and what you want. Because chasing always implies that something is ahead of you and you are behind it. Allowing removes that gap. It is not about doing nothing, it is about doing things from a different place. A place where you are not trying to fix something that feels broken. A place where you are not constantly reminding yourself that something is missing. That difference is subtle, but it is powerful. Because the moment you stop needing something to feel complete, you stop reinforcing the idea that it is absent. You stop feeding that loop of lack. And in that space, something new becomes possible. This is also where identity begins to play a role. Because manifestation is not really about getting something new. It is about becoming someone different. It is about shifting how you see yourself, how you think, how you respond, how you exist in your daily life. Most people focus on the result. They focus on the thing they want to receive. But they rarely focus on the version of themselves that naturally has it. And that is where the deeper transformation happens. Instead of asking how to get it, the question becomes, who are you being right now? That question changes everything because it brings the focus inward. It moves attention away from the external result and places it on your internal state. Because the version of you that already has what you want does not feel the same way as the version of you that is trying to get it. There is a difference in how they think, how they react, how they carry themselves. That difference is not always visible, but it is always present. The version of you that is trying to get something feels like they are reaching. They feel like they are not there yet. They feel like they need to do more, prove more, fix more. There is a sense of effort behind everything. Even simple actions feel heavy because they are connected to an outcome. Every step feels like it needs to lead somewhere. Every moment feels like it should bring progress. That constant pressure creates tension. The version of you that already has it does not feel that pressure. They are not trying to prove anything. They are not constantly checking if it is working. They are not measuring every step. There is a sense of ease in how they move through life. Not because everything is perfect, but because their identity is not tied to the result anymore. They already see themselves differently. And because of that, their actions come from a different place. This is where the real shift happens. Not when you finally get what you want, but when you start becoming the version of yourself that naturally aligns with it. That does not mean pretending. It does not mean acting in a way that feels fake. It means slowly adjusting how you see yourself. It means letting go of the identity that feels stuck, limited, or dependent. It means stepping into a state where you feel stable even before anything changes on the outside. This process does not happen all at once. It happens in small moments, in the way you respond to delays, in the way you handle uncertainty, in the way you talk to yourself when nothing seems to be moving. Those moments reveal your current identity, and they also show you what needs to shift, because every reaction either reinforces the old identity or supports the new one. When you stop reacting with frustration, something changes. When you stop questioning your worth based on external results, something shifts. When you stop chasing and start allowing, even in small ways, you begin to feel a difference. That difference grows over time. It becomes more natural. It becomes your default state instead of something you have to force. And then a new perspective starts to form. One that feels lighter. One that feels less pressured. You begin to realize that maybe nothing was wrong with your method. Maybe the steps you were following were not the issue. Maybe the real problem was the pressure behind them, the need to make them work, the expectation that they should produce results quickly. That pressure changes how everything feels. It turns simple practices into heavy routines. It turns calm belief into forced effort. When that pressure is removed, the same actions feel different. They feel easier. They feel more natural. They no longer feel like something you have to do perfectly. They become something you choose to do because it feels right, not because you are trying to fix something. This is where another realization begins to settle in. The idea that maybe you were never blocked. Maybe there was no invisible force stopping you. Maybe there was no missing step or hidden technique that you failed to find. Maybe the only thing that was creating that feeling of being stuck was the constant effort to push things forward before they were ready. Because timing plays a role that most people do not consider. Not everything happens instantly. Not everything responds to pressure. Some things unfold gradually, some things require space. And when you try to force them to happen faster, you create resistance, you create tension, you interrupt the natural process. This does not mean you stop moving forward. It means you stop trying to control every detail. You stop trying to speed up something that needs time. You allow things to unfold instead of forcing them to happen. That shift in perspective removes a lot of unnecessary pressure. It allows you to move through the process with more ease. And in that ease, something important begins to develop. A quiet sense of trust. Not the kind that needs constant reassurance, but the kind that feels stable even when nothing is happening on the surface. That trust changes how you experience everything. It reduces the need to check, to analyze, to question every moment. As this continues, you start to notice that the feeling of chasing fades. The urgency fades. The need to control fades. And in its place, there is a calm presence. A sense that things are unfolding in their own time. A sense that you do not need to force every step. This is where everything starts to align in a way that feels natural instead of forced. Not because you did more, but because you stopped doing what was creating resistance. Not because you found a new technique, but because you understood the state behind everything you were already doing. And that understanding quietly changes how you approach everything, without needing constant effort or control. What if the thing you want is not far away, not difficult, not out of reach, but simply waiting for a different version of you to meet it halfway? A version that is not tense, not chasing, not trying to force every step, but calm, steady, and open. What if all this time it was not about doing more, but about releasing the pressure you placed on it? Not chasing it, not controlling it, not overthinking every moment, but allowing it to come in its own time. Because the moment you relax, something shifts inside you, the noise fades, the urgency disappears, and in that quiet space, things begin to move in a way that feels natural instead of forced. Maybe the answer was never hidden in another technique or another method. Maybe it was hidden in the way you were approaching everything. the need to make it happen, the pressure to see results, the constant effort to fix what feels stuck. And now there is a different way to look at it, a way that feels lighter, a way that does not drain your energy but restores it, a way where you are not chasing life but letting life meet you where you are. If something in this video made you pause for a moment, if something felt clear in a way it did not before, then stay connected. Subscribe to the channel and come back whenever you need this reminder. Because sometimes it is not about learning something new, it is about remembering what you already understand deep down. And if this helped you see things differently, take a second to like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear this right now. Because sometimes the biggest shift does not come from doing more. It comes from finally realizing that you do not need to. Sometimes the path becomes clear the moment you stop forcing it. And sometimes the thing you have been waiting for starts moving toward you the moment you let go.